And we are in the regular meeting of the Fort Ord Reeves Authority Administrative Committee. So we'll call the meeting to order, and I'll have Jen Simon do a roll call to establish the quorum.
Okay. Dino Pick,
Here.
Craig Malin,
I'm here.
Lane Long.
It'll be about 5-10 minutes, I presume.
Hans Uslar,
Present.
Melanie Beretti,
Present.
Steve Matarazzo, Anya Spear,
Present.
Katie Moon, Mike Zeller, or Todd Muck,
Mike Zeller's here.
Bill Collins. I know he's here.
I'm here, sorry.
Okay.
He'll figure out that.
Matt Deal. I thought I saw him.
He's here.
I'm here.
Thank you. Erica Parker. Colleen Courtney. Vicky Nakamura. Patrick Breen. You have a quorum?
Okay, and Jen's standing in for our man Harry, who's taking his mom on a mission this morning. But for your notes, Jen, the voting members are the land use jurisdiction members.
Right.
So if there's action. Okay, I'll move to item 2, acknowledgements, announcements, and correspondence, and there's a few. I'm going to start with some of the correspondence that we've received. All of you hopefully saw a rather lengthy packet provided by our man Jonathan Brinkman from LAFCO yesterday evening, about 5:15. We shared that out. It's got some helpful information from the perspective of LAFCO on where things are. So we'll be talking with LAFCO FORA staff, and consultants will be talking with LAFCO tomorrow afternoon to bring them up to speed on things. And perhaps Jonathan will want to talk about that today a little further. We also on last Friday evening received a updated submittal from the city of Seaside for the consistency determination for Campus Town. And there is a process. How many folks here on the call have been through a consistency determination process with FORA? And I should see a show of hands. Craig has been through. Christy. Hans, no. Okay, well, there is a process, and part of that process actually passes through the administrative committee. The standard of practice is to have a submittal received and deemed complete. And then there's a convening of a group called a Planners Working Group. And the Planners Working Group is generally planning directors from each of the land use jurisdictions. And they collectively review the material, make a recommendation to the admin committee to consider the material complete and consistent, and then the admin makes a recommendation to the board. So we'll be working with our consultant, Steve Flint from RGS, to bring all that process together. This may involve a special convening of this committee. We are working on the timeline, And one thought that we had in looking back at the list of planners is being that some folks have moved on and so forth, is that we are looking at the possibility of just convening a special single focus meeting of the admin to do that in one step, the planners working group and the admin committee. But expect to hear more on that one. And then I'm gonna finally, just by way of announcements, begin a custom in our final 4 to 6 meetings for FORA to highlight what I would call a star cast remaining staff who are as yet unassigned post FORA. And I know that many of you are facing hard choices in your cities with staffing, so this may not be a perfect moment to consider, but I just want to let you know that the team we have here at FORA is highly competent at remote work and conducting themselves in a professional manner. So Jen Simon, Helen Rodriguez, Ermelinda Flores in accounting, and Harry Tregenza are those staff. So expect to hear more about them in the coming meetings ahead. So with that, I think that's acknowledgements, announcements, and correspondence that I have to offer. And any other members have any acknowledgements, announcements, or correspondence they would like to offer?
I do, Josh.
Okay, Lane.
So our council approved last night the FORA bond and the funding agreements and the indenture. So that was all approved
Right.
by our city council last night.
Thank you.
That's great.
Anyone else? Any members of the public with announcements? Often Mr. Yount has things to say, but he's being rather quiet this morning. Okay. So, well, I guess that takes us into the public comment period. Any members of the public wishing to address the committee on matters within its jurisdiction but not on its agenda may do so for up to 3 minutes and will not receive committee action. I'm seeing one Jonathan Brinkman there in the clouds above the Golden Gate raising his hand. Let's, you're still muted, Jonathan. Let's see if we can help you there. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to comment, as your executive officer mentioned, that LAFCO has transmitted a letter dated May 5th. And in that letter, we just share our concerns about the 3 particular items that were not on the May 6th Administrative Committee agenda and on the draft FORA Board May 14th agenda. Those items were of concern are the transition plan amendments. The item's been called the 2020 transition plan, which was not on the agenda. The CalPERS liability funding strategy, which has been a new item, but an item of urgency and concern, and the allocation of remaining FORA funds. So in our letter, we do cover these items and our concerns related to those items not on the agenda, as well as just the number of comments received from the community in LAFCO and how these requests have not yet been responded to by FORA. So in the time that's left, we want to continue to work with FORA closely and engage to complete our dissolution responsibilities, our respective ones. In this letter, it also outlines a number of other concerns and dissolution related issues. So just wanted to give that heads up to the committee, and LAFCO is available for coordination with FORA and its member agencies. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Jonathan. Does anyone else have any comments? Any members of the public with comments? Okay, seeing none. Just to respond to Mr. Brinkman, first of all, thank you, Jonathan, for sending the letter. You are uniquely qualified to understand the complexities and the multiple threads that we're weaving together to get this thing done. So appreciate your partnership and willingness to engage. We'll take you up on that more so. I will also acknowledge that we did have the CalPERS liability funding strategy on the agenda, and being that we went from a special meeting to the next day putting together this packet and sending it out, I'll take responsibility for simply leaving that item off, but we will be having more conversations about that, and I would not be surprised to see it come back on for the May 14th agenda. You know, there's when we get into that, looking at the board agenda, we can discuss that further. Okay. So next item of business, we'll close public comment and move to item 4, approval of meeting minutes. We have 3 sets of minutes to approve. March 25th special meeting, April 1st, and April 15th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes, or does anyone have comments on the minutes before we get there? Anyone have comments on the minutes? Any members have?
I'll move to approve.
Melanie's Beretti moves to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Malin, always good for a second. Thank you. Can we have a roll call vote, please, on the motion?
Dino Pick,
Dino must have stepped away for a moment. Why don't we circle back to Dino?
okay. Craig Malin,
Aye.
Lane Long,
Yes.
Hans Uslar,
Aye.
Melanie Beretti.
Aye.
Is Dino back? Dino?
Oh, there he is. Dino, we're approving minutes. You have a vote.
Dino, just say aye.
Sorry. Hello. Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion passes.
Okay. See, the practicality of city management weighing in, Mr. Uslar, thank you.
You're welcome.
Always a reliable, practical input.
That's how we advise council members. Just say aye.
Okay, so now we're moving on to item 5, the old May 14th, 2020 board meeting agenda review. So let's step through that here. If I can scroll down to that item on my packet here. Special meeting minutes. Okay, okay. So we've got consent agenda items, meeting minutes, a transition status report, and that doubles as our update to LAFCO. So that'll include our any adjustments we have planned for our final set of meetings. We've got some accounting activity, preparing to distribute funds that need to happen, getting accounts coalesced and consolidated. And we're looking to amend a vacation cash out policy for staff. Simply, that amendment is currently it's limited to one 80-hour cash out policy per year, and we have some staff with more than that to cash out. And So that'll be discussed at the executive committee and then included in the consent agenda. Next will be our bond purchase agreements, preliminary official statement, and the updated indenture of trust. So we're looking for the board to adopt a resolution similar to what they did at the last meeting, which basically allows approving and authorizing the execution and delivery of these documents. So those will be included in the final packet. It was a heavy lift to get everything ready for the last special meeting, and then being able to turn it around and get it into this draft packet was beyond the capacity of the team on Friday. Then the next item is the similar approach. Is there any questions on the bond purchase agreement, preliminary official statement, indenture of trust, item 7A? Okay, seeing none. Mike Zeller is raising his hand. Yes, Mike.
Yeah, thank you. So with the at the last board meeting where the agreements with the underlying agencies were approved, it's my understanding that your bond counsel is circulating those for signatures currently, or should we sign off on the version that we have and send that over?
I will double check. I expect that the I don't have an answer. I'll double check. I would expect that the John, do you know John Giffen?
I think I would wait for Paul and
Yeah, that's what I was.
let's check with him.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Docs for signature. Yeah, we're gonna have there's gonna be a bunch of docs that need signatures, so we're gonna have to get clear on it. Okay. Speaking of docs that will need signatures, item 7B will be the MOA for capital improvement and general fund project transfers. So the goal here is to have all 4 items with MOAs sufficiently baked to allow the board to adopt another resolution authorizing the executive officer to execute the MOAs. So with some room for minor adjustment before it gets out the door. But for those entities like the city of Marina and probably by then the city of Seaside, whose councils have taken action on the MOA, those would be the documents that we would sign.
And Josh,
Yes,
I want to confirm. So we have sent our signed documents over to you. Have you received those yet?
I have. Yes, I got those Monday.
Okay, great.
Thank
Hey, Josh.
Yeah, Dino, go ahead.
Thanks. Hey, just want to highlight the fact that California Native Plant Society and our dear friend Molly Erickson is not letting up on the fun and games until the very end here, and I want to make sure that Hans gets looped into, if he's not already, into the correspondence that CMPS has sent out to FORA regarding South Boundary Road project and CMPS. And we'll stay tied in with, I've talked to Christy in the last couple of days. I know Josh, you and I have spoken, but look forward to staying tied in with your efforts to bring whatever the MOA looks like and whatever the response looks like to, if there is one, to Molly as that moves forward. So hopefully we can facilitate that transfer as cleanly as possible and limit any risk to both FORA and the city.
Indeed. John, do you have anything to add, or Christy, on that?
Just that it will be a coordinated effort with the MOAs, with Delray Oaks and FORA, and a response to Molly at the same time.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to give a quick update on where the MOA sit. So Marina and Seaside have, we've been negotiating with them or not negotiating, but communicating between lawyers. And so those MOAs are very much down the path, and I think we feel very good. The issue left on those MOAs is simply the data transfer. And I have meetings with Brian McMinn for City of Marina and with Scott Ottmar for the City of Seaside to talk about information transfer. So those are very well set up. The county MOA just got sent out last night. The county MOA and the Delray Oaks MOA were a little bit delayed simply because they're more complicated with the contract concept, or the contracts that we're trying to transfer with respect to those MOAs. So we are working with each of the entities, the underlying jurisdictions, to get those things happening as quickly as possible. The information transfer is not something that we're dragging our heels on. We just want to be as efficient as possible and make sure that people are getting the information that they need. So that's my quick update. So I'm assuming that Marina's MOA was approved last night and Seaside's will be approved on Thursday. Is that a correct assumption?
I think
Well, go ahead, Craig.
I think it's on the 21st. I could be wrong.
21st.
21st. Okay, thank you.
And ours was approved last week.
right.
Last week. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks for those dates.
Yeah, so that's the approach here that's being taken with the authorizing resolution would provide for the ability to do those agreements, final them, and then get this money flowing, because clock's ticking. I didn't do my countdown statement earlier, but I think today we're at 55 or 56 days till the 30th. 55 days. Yeah, and then to the point that Jonathan was so kind to bring back to my attention about our conversation at the last meeting about the CalPERS liability funding strategy item. I would expect this to come back on this agenda, and really this item has to be resolved before the bonds can be issued. So that's the urgency that it has. It is also a critical issue simply for the wind down of FORA. And so that'll be an item that the board discusses in addition to likely one other item that has come up that was discussed with members around the East Garrison Partners, a deal made. Perhaps Jonathan knows about that one back in 2006, and having to do with some financial transactions that left FORA with a debt on the books that basically has a clause in the agreement that basically says FORA won't encumber its property tax revenues before this debt is solved. So so those are items that the board's really going to have to wrestle with. I think the key message to the decision makers for each of your board members is that resolving these issues will allow the bond matter to go forward. If it's not resolved, and that has to do both with the actual agreement, but also the timing of the resolution of those issues, then the bonds won't be able to be issued. So the other component, of course, is if the bonds were not to be issued, then the debts would be covered with property tax revenues that would normally, under the transition agreement, flow to repay those debts post FORA. So nothing but fun on these issues, but I think the simple message is better to have something than nothing in regards to these bond matters. And I think, you know, taking action now to tie up this affair, this 25-year affair of FORA, and move on into the future is the way to go, in my opinion. And hopefully you all can communicate with your board members and help them understand some of those dynamics. I will also say, just by way of talking about the bond issue, a couple of other points. First, our man Ron Cheshire here, who's sitting there enjoying his coffee, has been active in advocating to Congressman Panetta's office about the potential to secure federal matching dollars, other money that could be brought to bear to further the building removal goals that we have. And I have also had conversations with the Congressman's office and other federal agencies. So I would say that even though these building removal bonds may not achieve our final end goal of total removal of all the buildings, you know, skillful and proactive navigation now would be smart. And this historically would be the role of FORA, but given the local control and local future activities that are now before us, that becomes, you know, the role that you all can take on. So, and I would say there's one other item that has come up. Oh, John, do we need to mention anything about this this date at the court date mention? Is that something that we should put on?
Not at this point. I think we're fine.
Okay, so there may, you know, every day there comes to be just a little bit, another little thing to think about, and we'll be back to you if there's any other wrinkles. But we're somebody's going to have to write a book about getting this bond when we get it done. Thank you, Craig Malin, for bringing it up 2 years ago. Okay. Okay, so that's the board meeting agenda review. Does any members have any comments or questions? Any members of the public with comments or questions on that topic? Okay, well, great. Seeing none, we'll move to item 6A, which is our business item, the transition plan implementing agreement final draft. And I'll pass the mic to our able consultant, transition consultant, Kendall Flint, to walk us through this item.
So thank you, Josh. This is what David Willoughby and I are calling the thinned down version of the TPIA. So as you know, the last meeting of the admin committee, you decided to move forward with language that related to water. That was the final thing that we had to put in this agreement. So all other references to habitat, to road improvement projects, all of those have been struck. And I think that I just want to point out the two things that are remaining that are probably most pertinent to folks. One, that this agreement supersedes the 2001 implementing agreements. And two, that it does memorialize the water allocations, which is something that this group and the board have also chatted about. Admin really doesn't have any thing to vote on today per se, but the idea here is to now see if the member agencies are going to take this forward. I spoke with Dino. I know that Delray Oaks is considering moving forward this with their council. We would encourage folks to take it to your various councils and boards for approval. We're hoping that they get approved between now and the end of the FORA universe, but we are relying on the members to take that to their agencies and to let us know when and if these are approved moving forward. There's been some question about whether or not there's actually enforceability on that. I'm going to kind of defer to John on that because it's something we've struggled with as well. We don't have really an agency that can enforce. However, we do believe there's value in the document, as is mentioned, because it does make it clear that there's no further funds coming from FORA, and that you're all, which you already all know, that you're all basically on your own in the post-FORA universe. And I'm available for any questions on that, but that's really it. I did want to just make one other minor note. The 2020 transition plan relies heavily on action that will be taken as it relates to the bond, because it directly affects the CalPERS information. That is why it is not on the May board agenda, but it will be on the June board agenda once those other issues have been addressed, so that we can update the 2020 plan to reflect all of that information. And I also wanted to point out, just by way of information, that John Giffen and I are working on the last couple agreements out there that would be part of what was once Exhibit A that is no longer in the 2020 plan, and that we are meeting with Jonathan tomorrow to kind of go over all these things and other stuff. So we'll have that information buttoned up in a staff report and a updated transition plan at the board meeting next week. So with that, if there are any questions regarding the implementing agreement, I think John and I are available to answer them.
Just one correction, you mentioned that next week there would be an updated transition plan. Rather, it's an updated transition status report.
Correct. Thank you. Thanks, Josh. Yep.
And that would include the outline of topics for the forthcoming board meetings. With the current schedule, we'll have 2 in May and 2 in June. So that's 4 remaining meetings. Okay, so I'm seeing lots of hands. First, I think we had Lane Long. Go ahead, Lane.
Thank you. So yeah, Kendall, our attorneys have gone through this, and they had a couple questions and revisions, but I don't have all those. So I'm hoping to get those to you by the close of today.
I would say that would be helpful, and I'm happy to review those with council to see if there's things that we can adjust, whatever. And I throw that to anyone. If Wendy needs to look at it for the county or anybody else, and actually would say as long as we get them by the end of the week, even, we're okay. But we do need to give the member agencies opportunity to pass these, and we do need to have a set deadline because this has been floating around for several months, and I think there has been ample time. So. Josh, are you comfortable with saying as long as we have them by the end of the week, but past that, I think we've got to draw the line?
Yeah, I would say end of day Thursday to give us time to put our packet together. That would be the best, even if it came in the middle of the night after somebody's.
Reminder, Josh, this won't go in the this won't go in the board packages. It would just be back out to the members.
Fine. Yes. Let's call it then Friday, 5 o'clock. If it's not going to.
Okay. Great. Thanks.
Okay. I'm seeing Melanie Beretti, and I did see Doug, your hand raised, but we'll go with members first, and then we'll take comments from the public.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest if there are edits suggested from other entities, it would be helpful if those are circulated with all of the entities rather than not, because it may address and or cause questions from other entities.
Is there a way to do that efficiently, Kendall? What do you think?
Well, I think I'm going to kind of look at John Giffen on that, because there could be an issue with Brown Act if we're doing mass group emails. So my suggestion would be that just send to me all of your comments, and then I'll combine those into one to say, so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so said this. And then that way we can report out if anybody had the same comment. But I'm reluctant, and John, what do you think about that? I'm reluctant to have it be.
I would say send your comments to Kendall, copy me, and then we will appropriately notify everybody.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments or questions from members? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the public, and I see one Doug Yount with his hand raised, or at least a sunset where he would be.
Yes, thanks, Josh. I just had a question on, I guess for Kendall, or maybe for yourself, what is the primary difference or between the transition plan and the transition plan implementing agreement? What does the TPIA do that is not done in the transition plan?
So that's a great question, Doug. And there's a lot of redundancy between the two documents. To be honest, such as water, right? It exists in both documents at this point. And in both documents, we also make a reference to the fact that it supersedes previous agreements. I think just a little step back down the FORA memory lane, when the implementing agreements were originally envisioned by Michael Hulemard and I think Ms. Damon as an example, they were viewed as more of an implementing of the base reuse plan post FORA. And as we've kind of worked through this process, it's become clear that the agencies do not want it to get into agreement like that, but would rather just have a clean break with FORA and move on. So both agreements continue to march forward, but they are different. The transition plan basically outlines the steps that FORA will take to sunset, what it will do with its assets, how it will transfer money, where responsibilities, if any, will flow to member agencies such as Seaside for the ESCA. The implementing agreements is more of a agreement between the member agencies, is what their understanding is of their relationship post FORA. And what it's really saying is we're getting a divorce, we agree on the water, love you, bye. And John, I refer to you if you've got anything that I've missed on that.
Complete to me, Kendall, that's fine.
Okay. Okay. Members of the public, I'm seeing Ron Cheshire and then Jonathan Brinkman.
I understand that the jurisdictions want a clean break from FORA and want to move on with their lives as to whatever they want to do. But, you know, the Army originally called for an implementation agreement to ensure that the terms of the MOA, the no-cost economic development conveyance were met. Then there was a settlement by the Sierra Club, which formed, which created Chapter 8 of the Master Resolution, but also set conditions in regards to the reuse plan, the programs and policies for including the Master Resolution and such. This attempt to divorce themselves from this whole situation, it's just going to lead to a lot of problems. I just don't see how by signing a paper that says that the old agreements are superseded, you know, you may have a TPIA which it makes an agreement between the 5 landholders on how water and records are going to be handled. But you have deed restrictions and covenants on the property that continue to run with the land in perpetuity. And I don't see how the jurisdictions are going to avail themselves of that.
Josh, you're still muted.
Oh, thank you, Ron. Is there is that a question at the end?
Yeah,
or?
it's a question. It's a question. Yes.
I think we've discussed this before, and I know we disagree, and I completely respect, you know, your efforts to you know, continue to push this on, so don't misunderstand, but the covenants and agreements that are tied to the deeds are still in effect, and those are federal, they're at the federal level. The state requirements which related to prevailing wage are not included in those deed restrictions, and that's why Those are two separate things. So I appreciate it, but they're
in the settlement agreement with the Sierra Club, and they're deed restricted. It's required. It was required. And FORA has recorded those.
I'll defer to John on that one, but the admin committee has reviewed these TPIAs. They've made their input, and the agreement that is before them is the result of the collaboration between this group.
Well, I understand that, and with all due respect to the administrative committee and all the people that are on it, which I happen to appreciate their efforts and such, you've made it quite clear. They want a divorce. I don't know if a total divorce is possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron. Okay, Jonathan Brinkman.
Okay, I just wanted to bring up that LAFCO has been looking to the future about having funds, given the uncertainty of receiving funds before FORA's dissolution, having a language in an agreement, whether it's the multi-agency implement agreement, may not be the most appropriate agreement based on Kendall's initial presentation that this agreement's not going to deal with any funding issues. But LAFCO has sent a number of letters to FORA as concerned that we need to cover our costs, whether it's litigation or administrative expenses, post June 30. So we would just ask that you help us in identifying appropriate another agreement if FORA funds are distributed to jurisdictions and jurisdictions such as the county holding on to funds for post June 30 administration, that LAFCO have a mechanism to assure its costs after June 30. So that's just my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. As you know, the FORA board is going to make decisions on the allocation of funds. So that should be something that you continue to raise with the board, and we will continue to share your communications.
And it is addressed in the 2020 transition plan with specific language related to LAFCO. So that will continue to be discussed. And I think that is one of those things, Jonathan, we'll talk about again tomorrow, but will be wrapped up in the June, by the board in the June meetings.
Thank you.
It's going to be big, just a heads up on that. June is not, we're not going to be walking quietly into the sunset. There's going to be some heavyweight items on in June. Just an outline, the distribution of any unassigned funds, the consistency determination for Campus Town, and the consideration of the EIR for the HCP. So those are then, and along with that, the 2020 transition plan. All of that would be coming at the June 11th and second vote 19th meetings. So hopefully we can get all of that done, but I'd say prepare for those to be full court meetings. Okay. Any other comments on item 6A from the public, from the members, from anyone on the call? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to item 7, item from members. Any items from members? Seeing none. Move to item 8, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Can I get a second?
Second.
On.
Second.
We got 2
Thank
seconds.
you, Melanie.
I beat you.
Well, it's been real, folks. We'll be back on later this afternoon for our executive committee and continue our productive work to the finish line. So thank everyone for your continued focus on all this.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, Josh. You're doing good.
Take care. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.